to consolidate the place of the judiciary in our constitutional and democratic dispensation, my administration will respect judicial decisions while we cement the place of Kenya as a country anchored on democracy and the rule of law. To further demonstrate my commitment to the independence of the judiciary, this afternoon I will appoint the 6 judges already nominated for appointment to the Court of Appeal, which was done 3 years ago by the Judicial Service Commission.
Because today is Thursday, we thought it befitting to have a throwback video as we come back. Let me take you back to that date. It was the 13th of September 2022, on the day that President Ruto was making his inaugural speech as president, right, after being sworn in. How things change in a short span of time. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. So, what happened? Let's just go back a little bit in time, Linus. What happened to this speech that was made on that day? In fact, he did then proceed to appoint them that very afternoon. They were sworn in the day after, right?
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, he announced the judicial fund for 4 billion shillings, was it? And he was guaranteeing the independence of the judiciary and saying, look, we'll give you your money and you are able to, you know, run your business and your operations. And it seemed to be a break with the past. But then no sooner had we than we found ourselves here again. What happened?
This was not a sign of commitment to the independence of the judiciary, not by any stretch. This was a very smart political move against his former boss who opposed his candidature to be president. This was a poke in the eye of Uhuru Kenyatta. You refuse to appoint these judges. I appoint all the 6. This was absolutely, I mean, even on the day, and we were here watching the inauguration, that's smart politics. A big difference with commitment to independence of the judiciary. Commitment to the independence of the judiciary is about respecting its decisions, especially the unpalatable ones, the decisions that are not, that you find disagreeable. Politically, I thought what President Ruto was doing on his first day of office was to invest in goodwill. That you guys in the judiciary, I am your man, I'll do what my predecessor did not do for you. I will do your bidding. You want money? There'll be money. Yeah. Your funds will flow. Oh, 6 judges, they stand appointed. And remember, he went on giving this sweeteners to the judiciary, because this was political investment. And political investments, especially when it comes to legal constitutional issues, can unaweza ungua, by the way. You can't, because now Martha Koome cannot change the constitution. Martha Koome doesn't actually have the authority to decide for judges how they should rule. For example, she has no say on the matter that is before another judge. It can come for review through the judicial processes, but she can't, in the way politicians think, that call that judge and tell them, you know, I want this and that. You can't do that. You could do that up to 1988, and then you start struggling between 1992 and 1997. It becomes completely complicated between 97 and 2002. And then 2010, every door to that kind of thinking is actually locked. There is absolutely nothing a Chief Justice can give back as a political gift to another arm of government, because she is not. Remember, judges actually take their oath as individuals. Yeah. They're not sworn in like policemen. You know, the way policemen are sworn is you all line up in the parade and shout your name. That is not how judges are sworn in. One by one, you as an individual, I, Justice, I so-and-so, swear to protect the Constitution. So for judges, each and everyone, on constitutional matters, it is a personal duty. It's not a group thing. And there was nothing Martha Koome was going to give back. And we could see on day one, actually, what the president was doing was to invest. That you guys, I'm good. Remember how colorful he was in his praise of the Supreme Court decision on the election. He was very happy with the dismissal of the election petition.
Yeah.
And you know, Martha Koome actually in the court spoke of hot air. It really trended among the supporters of the president. So what I saw on that day, when you look at the president appointing 6 judges, offering the judiciary that he's going to release the funds, these are political investments. And political investments do not come with constitutional guarantees.
Indeed. And one of the interesting things, I think, before we start talking about what those talks could look like is, so you've got former President Uhuru Kenyatta making adverse, general, vague allegations against the 6 judges that he failed to appoint, injuring their reputation in one way or another, because they stand accused of we know not what. And then they're appointed, so that matter just fizzles out. Now we've seen some allegations against Justice Esther Maina. And then now we see a backtracking today to say, you know, essentially words to the effect, let's give dialogue a chance, and these are the processes that we have come to. So 2 things. One, if there was any truth anywhere in there, what happens is it gets swept under the rug. Then 2, you ask yourself, was there ever any truth to begin with? And are people's reputations maligned? These are judges who continue to sit and hear cases of different nature. So what happens there? Was there some truth, and has that truth now been abandoned, or the course of seeking that truth and possibly justice? Or is it someone's reputation that's maligned, and then, oh yeah, okay, it's fine, because, you know, this is highly a political process and political statements that are being applied to judicial processes and judicial decisions. So for me, it's just that dilemma. If there was any truth to any of these allegations, then that matter has been abandoned. Therefore, if there were claims of corruption that may have had some truth to them, what happens? If there is no truth, then we've just burned someone's reputation and we just move on and, you know, say sorry bas, because, you know, it was political, and we keep moving. That's what I find interesting. But can we talk about talking? So, you know, you said some interesting things, Sam, before the break. You know, I remember a politician saying, talks for what, about what, with who, with where. So here's the thing, you know, the Chief Justice has opened up the space. You know, she says, we will be looking out for that dialogue. We have written, and I believe the president is going to give us an appointment. So what's the format of the talks? What's the venue of the talks? Who is in attendance? Will they be publicly televised, like we've seen with the others? Because you see, what you did is you've brought us into this dispute. You have raised these allegations. The deputy president himself said, you know, let them tell us how many people they are investigating for corruption. The Chief Justice comes out and indeed gives a very, you know, spirited defense and says, these are the number of judges or judicial officials that are under investigation for corruption. These are the cases. This is where they are. Some have been concluded. People have been let go, that sort of thing. And then now they're going to talk. So will they talk in front of us? Will those talks be televised? Will we also get a chance as members of the public to perhaps go and make our presentations, you know, at these talks? What will be the structure? In fact, I want to know who will mediate or moderate. Are we going to see, what, members of the religious institutions, civil society? And then what's the possible outcome of the talks? That we have what? That says what? And I'm struggling with that. And I think before you come in, let's listen to Raila Odinga on the same.
Please, Madam Martha Koome, don't compromise the independence of the judiciary by going to bed with the executive. There's nothing to be discussed between you and the executive.
There's nothing to negotiate. Absolutely. And I would be very disappointed if Chief Justice Koome was to fall for that obvious trick and fall into a trap.
Sam.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with talking, though.
No. I mean, talking is fine. Most probably, the president and the president of the Supreme Court have been speaking as heads of two different institutions. In any case, there has been several conversations even between the head of the executive and the head of at least the National Assembly and the Senate. So talking is fine. It's only that now in this format, it becomes disturbing. That's why you're seeing the Law Society of Kenya, some of the members of the political class are speaking the way they are. But also, when I look at the Judicial Service Commission and I look at Honorable Justice Mohamed Warsame, who comes from the Court of Appeal, David Majanja, a commissioner who comes from the High Court, and he was actually leading the three-judge bench that gave the finding on the Finance Act 2023, that is related to the housing levy. Evelyn Olwande is the Chief Magistrate. You look at Justin Muturi, Attorney General, he sits in Cabinet. You look at of course, there are two LSK representatives. There is Justice Mohamed Ibrahim from the Supreme Court, representing the Supreme Court. And then Isaac Ruto, again, like you said, they are representing the public. And then there is also Charity Kisoto, who comes from the Public Service Commission. So you look at that, there's a heavy representation from the legal profession, from the judiciary itself, and then again from people that are picked by the president, because even at the Public Service Commission, it is a commission that is serving the public, appointed by the president. Therefore, that representation has a bit of bearing on what the executive would want to do there. So if these members of the Judicial Service Commission are the ones that are going to have an appointment with the president, I'm just wondering what role will the Attorney General be playing in that meeting? Because he's a commissioner of the Judicial Service Commission, but also the legal advisor of the president. If indeed there are certain situations of impropriety or corruption that the president is alleging, is it that the Attorney General doesn't know that would actually raise them at the Judicial Service Commission?
You're asking what he's supposed to do in that meeting?
Exactly.
Should be a fact checker for both.
On both sides.
Yes.
Fact checking indeed. But then again, my discomfort is, so the problem here started with the Social Health Insurance Fund, or the 4 health laws, let's just call them that.
Yeah.
It also has a bearing on the housing levy, because there are people that have gone to court that the president does not think mean well for the country and for the administration. So will that meeting deal with those two particular issues? So that
they're still in court.
Exactly, they're still in court. So that essentially, you're telling the members of the Judicial Service Commission, some of whom are no longer dealing with those particular petitions that have been filed in court, what are they to do then? But then, remember, the Chief Justice is saying the president may have received certain information. Please share it with us. But then also, interested to look at Article 160 of the Constitution on independence of the judiciary. And Article 1 says that in the exercise of judicial authority, the judiciary, as constituted by Article 161, shall be subjected only to this Constitution and the law, and shall not be subject to the control or direction of any person or authority. So even as the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly is saying that, leave the judiciary to us, we are going to deal with them. I'll not tell you how, but we will. That has no place in dealing with the authority and the independence of the judiciary. So I don't know, those talks, they may deal with the differences between understanding of how judiciary is supposed to work between the president or the executive and the Judicial Service Commission, but what will they do to members of parliament who have already expressed themselves on how they are going to punish the judges? Again, I took keen interest in what the Deputy President may have said. And of course, if you have to reflect on how you remove a judge, and that petition, first of all, has to be in writing, setting out the alleged facts constituting the grounds for the judge's removal. And that is the Constitution. It's Article 168 of the Constitution. So those talks, will they also be presented with the facts against a judge who dealt with a matter that the Deputy President was not happy about?
This is interesting. You know, as you come in, it just bears to mind when the National Dialogue Committee then started to discuss matters, for instance, of the constitution of IEBC. All of these talks were happening at the time there was an IEBC selection panel whose work it was to, gather all of these essentially CVs and, sort of whittle them down. That has been, can we call them moribund now? Because what have they been doing? Twiddling their thumbs while they wait to see, the outcome of this process. By the way, the outcome of, or the implementation of that report from NATCO, nothing's been done about it. We've gone quiet to that and put that under the rug. But for me, then, my reflection on that, and I guess the analogy is this: if that IEBC selection panel was declared really redundant by those talks, is there a chance that you start having talks like this, and then the JSC suddenly becomes irrelevant, because the JSC is the body that is mandated to do all of those things that they want to do outside of something that has already been set up and mandated by the Constitution? So why have the JSC then?
You see, Yvonne, what is happening in this country now is another rabbit has been released for us to chase round again. Because this is truly hot air, if we can put it that way. Because there's nothing a CJ and a president can sit down and agree about a written constitution. They can't even agree to overthrow it. It won't work. Because the High Court, for example, would rule against a decision like that. This constitution, the Constitution of Kenya 2010, was written by scared Kenyans. Everything that is happening today was predicted and written against by this constitution. And that's how it's such an irritating document, if you can put it that way. I like the word irritating tonight. Because it was written with the past in mind. And the past used to include all these things, including a promise by a politician like Gladys Boss that I'll do something. And in the old days, they could actually do something, like make somebody transferred, make a judge to be demoted, and things like that. That is not possible anymore. I actually don't know, and we're waiting to see what Gladys Sholay is promising to deliver to the president in terms of dealing with the judiciary. Because and you reflect deep on this, and you'll find that there's absolutely no way of dealing with it except by overthrowing the Constitution itself. Because as long as there's that one judge that is reading it right, just one, not many, you'll always have a problem with it. This law was written to get us out of the past, a past where impunity was passed as the law. Impunity was the order of doing things. The president can order things around, make appointments, dismiss people, dismiss judges, appoint a CJ at will and all that. That is all behind us, which is why I call the proposed meeting completed for me.
Hot.
It's hot.
Well, it's hot.
It's hot
just off the back of what you're saying, let's listen to the LSK president on just that very issue.
We will do anything under the law to ensure that we do not slide back to the days when this country was ruled by the rule of man.
Judiciary must be respected, and it must be allowed to do what the Constitution says it must do. If there's any evidence against any of the judicial officers, let him follow the laid down procedures.
Indeed, sliding back to the dark days, I want us to start our closing thoughts. Sam, where do you think we go from here? If all the talks we have tried to have in this country, I think save for the talks that we had that led up to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, all other forms of talking have been with implementation or outcomes of those talks being anything but. Again, the NATCO report is gathering dust, but, here we are talking again. So what sort of guarantees do we have that we can talk and resolve? And, what are we resolving particularly? Because if there is corruption in the judiciary, how does talking about it solve the problem? It would be that you find the culprits, take them through the courts and the judicial process. If they're guilty, we know what happens. If not, then, we know what happens. But if this issue of corruption is as big as they say it is, and like I said, corruption exists everywhere, for sure. But we're talking so that we solve corruption how? So then we say, okay, you've been a bad boy, you've been a bad girl, you've been taking money, now stop. And then they say, okay, sorry. Promise not to do it again. I promise. Pinky promise.
Now, I think what's going to help the country will have to be respecting institutions. And even as we sit here, nobody here is saying that there is no corruption or just bad manners at the judiciary. And nobody is saying that there is no such at the executive, neither at Parliament. I mean, there are enough cases. As late as last year, there's a case of a judge who was removed from office by a tribunal, appealed that decision at the Supreme Court, and it was confirmed. So really, it is testament that certain things are happening in these institutions or arms of government. But I think there has to be that realization that there has to be respect of these institutions. That independence has to be respected so that Article 10 on the national values becomes a reality, even as so that it's not just a question of quoting to show that we understand the Constitution on what the national values are. Without that, then we may keep talking, but we may never succeed, at least in making the public move with us or move with the leadership of the country, leadership at all at 3 levels or 3 arms of government. But I think also it's a moment for the current administration to reflect. Why is it that people keep complaining and petitioning the courts against certain decisions that, in the view of the administration, are meant to improve the lives of Kenyans or the quality of life of Kenyans? Is it that there are certain things administrations do against the will of the people that put them in that opportunity that it can be challenged in court? If that's the case, then that's the problem. At a time that you have a parliament that you can tell between who is a member of parliament, a representative of the people who oversees the administration or the government, versus someone who sits in the executive, there lies the problem. So if everything is to work as it should, if judges are to be expected to do their work, and they should be expected because that's what the Constitution says, then also members of parliament must do their work. If you're a member of parliament for a certain constituency, let me say constituency X, your work cannot just be to go to the House to take a vote verbally. It has to be to contribute, to oversight the government and other agencies that are in the mandate of parliament. Without that, if they speak more at rallies and public meetings that they do on the floor of the House and in committees of the National Assembly and the Senate, we'll still have this problem. There will be promises to the executive to fix things on the floor of the House, which is not a reality. There will be promises that we can help with the judges, and the president himself has said that there are people that are approaching him to set aside some kitty to deal with the judiciary, and he says that he's not going to do that. Of course, we do not know whether that is factual or not, but the president has a wide range of source of information, so probably that is accurate. Maybe there are people that asked him to do that. But all this does not help us if it doesn't improve the lives of the people, and that has to be done by respecting the Constitution, respecting the institutions, the independent institutions, and I say this including the judiciary itself, because there are certain issues that they have complained about. The judges, the magistrates have filed certain matters before the courts and their interested parties. So all that, how do you distinguish the role of the various institutions in a manner that can make sense in the aspirations of the Constitution of Kenya?
Eunice, final word?
Final word. Good or bad manners start or stop with the presidency. That's the bottom line. And I just want to go to President William Ruto's remarks when he was swearing in the 6 judges on the day he was inaugurated. And I just want to quote verbatim He says, Kenya can only be better if we become a country of the rule of law. Anything else leads to anarchy and confusion. We are all equal before the law. He continues, even as president, I have limitations and I should respect them. Just like all other arms of government have limitations. We must all live within our mandate. It is the rule of law, not the rule of man. I'm quoting President William Ruto. These remarks he made on the 13th
of September
2022. And we reported this at exactly 3 minutes past 4 p.m. that day. That's my final word.
That's a good place to leave it. Thanks for watching this show. As always, we shall see you again next week. Reflect on that. Thanks for watching. Again, Happy New Year.